Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Francesco, and with this video I'm going to introduce you to topic 1. And one thing that at least I hope that you get out of this is that you don't actually use page numbers in the Ontario Building Code to reference something into it. You use something else. We'll get to that in a moment. I want to remind you about the expectation for this course. You saw them in the introductory video that was posted for you. And that is that before class, you want to download the course notes, you want to read the course notes, and then view the videos that are embedded inside those course notes. And you want to do that before class. And that's because during our class, whether online or in person, we're actually going to solve an example together, more than one possibly, and do a quick review of the topic or topics for that week. So I want you to be able to ask informed questions if we get together, right? So that's why the videos and the notes and the lectures are posted for you ahead of time. During the class time, we're actually going to do examples about those topics. I'm going to post a link for you in the description about this welcoming video. That way, if you missed it, you can catch it again and view what the expectations are for this course. For topic 1, this video, what is the agenda? We're going to start with chatting about what the Ontario Building Code is. Then we're going to move on to how it's arranged, its numbering systems, the icons that I'm going to be using for these videos and in the course notes, and definitions. We're going to finish the video itself with definitions and how they're set up in the Ontario Building Code. Let's start with a general description of what the Ontario Building Code is. This is what it looks like, okay? I think the best way to think of the Ontario Building Code, if we're getting a little silly, is that not only does it look after your mind and fostering knowledge about the construction industry in Ontario, it's also an amazing exercising tool. The Ontario Building Code, once the hard copy of it becomes available for sale, they're not right now as I'm recording these videos, only the digital copies are available to me. But I'm showing you here the previous version. This is only half of it. It's one volume. You can see both volumes are right here. It's probably going to be the heaviest textbook you've ever used. Okay? It's going to be an excellent tool for the purposes of exercising. Okay? Now, enough of me being silly. Not only is it a terrific exercising tool, it's also there because it has a purpose. The Ontario Building Code is essentially a set of minimum provisions respecting the safety of buildings with reference to public health, fire protection, accessibility, structural sufficiency, energy efficiency, and environmental integrity. Not bad, right? It's almost as if I was reading a script. Well, the Ontario Building Code was very, very helpful in that respect. It actually provides in its preface what it is. And that's what I was reading for you. It gives me an opportunity also to show you what the digital copy of the Ontario Building Code looks like. Okay, right here. Let me zoom in for you. There we go. Okay. So this here is the digital copy of the Ontario Building Code, and what I was reading for you is right here, okay, in the preface, okay? And this is what we're going to be using for the purposes of this course. No need to purchase a hard copy of the Ontario Building Code Compendium. The digital copy is perfectly okay. I promise you it's perfectly fine for this course, okay? All right. Now, what's my definition of the Ontario Building Code? For all intents and purposes, the Ontario Building Code is and always will be kind of the minimum construction requirements that are allowed and expected for legal construction in Ontario. Now, to be fair, this is a bit of a cynical definition. By definition, the Ontario Building Code will always be the minimum construction requirements. The Ontario Building Code has been around since, I don't know, over 50 years. And it's come a long way, in a good way. There's still some more where there is room for improvement, but there is always room for improvement. It's in a terrific place right now, but that's really what it is, okay? Typically, the Ontario Building Code is referred to as OBC, Saying the words Ontario Building Code takes a long time, so sometimes I just refer to it as OBC, and so do many people who deal with it, okay? Pronounced like this. And you should know that the Ontario Building Code is not the law in Ontario. There is a law in Ontario that says we must use the Ontario Building Code. But that law at any point can change to say that we could use something else. As of right now, for the 2024 edition of the Ontario Building Code, the Ontario Building Code, the law that says we have to use the Ontario Building Code, says that we're basically using the National Building Code of Canada, about 75% of it, with some small or large changes. Okay? There are other provinces in Canada and other territories in Canada that use 100% of the National Building Code of Canada. So I'm going to link for you in the description below how to get access to the National Building Code of Canada if you're interested in seeing what that looks like. And at least the latest version as I'm recording this video. And as well, I'm going to link for you how to get the digital copy of the Ontario Building Code, the latest version as of this video is being recorded. How is the Ontario Building Code arranged? You kind of saw a little bit when I showed you what turned out to be Volume 1 of the Ontario Building Code, but here is how it's arranged. There are 2 volumes, and Volume 1 comprises from start to finish with the preface, the Building Code Act, Divisions A, B, and C, the index, and the pending amendments. Okay? We are going to use a little bit of the preface and some stuff in here, and you're probably going to use a lot of the index to find things. Division A, furthermore, within it contains parts 1, 2, and 3. Division B, which we are going to use a lot more, contains 12 parts. We're going to use part 3, probably the majority of this course, and a little bit of part 9. And then for Division C, there are 3 parts. We're not going to use Division C at all. Of these divisions, Division A is probably the thinnest, the fewer pages. Division C is halfway between the two, and Division B is the one that has the most pages. I think Volume 1 is something in the order of almost 1,300 pages. Okay? I showed you the preface. That's at the very beginning of Volume 1. I recommend you read it. Okay? I honestly do. And then pending amendments. Pending amendments is something you're only going to find if you purchase a hard copy, a paper copy of the Ontario Building Code. As I'm recording these videos, hard copies are not for sale yet. I'm using the digital copy of the Ontario Building Code, which is perfectly fine. Pending amendments are found at the end of the hard copies because what they'll do is they'll provide expected amendments for the future for the latest edition of the Ontario Building Code, so that when that date happens, you can take the pending amendments from the end and replace the corresponding pages in the Ontario Building Code. If you use the digital copy of the Ontario Building Code, this won't be there because it's always the latest version, right? What will be future amendments are already in there. I should also chat a little bit about what an edition is. The edition of the Ontario Building Code for this course is 2024. So that represents the year when the law was passed by the provincial government to say that a new edition of the Ontario Building Code will come into effect as of, in our case, more or less January 1st, 2025. Then what happens is between editions, and editions can come out, historically speaking, anywhere between every 3 years or every 15 years or so, okay? Between editions, which are big changes to the Ontario Building Code, you get amendments, which are very, very minor changes. And that's in the order sometimes of just a few random, seemingly random pages in the building code. Okay? So between editions, there are going to be amendments. And then once a big change happens, that's when a new edition of the Ontario Building Code comes out. Volume 2 contains appendices A and B, the supplementary standards, and we're going to use some of these, okay, which are very helpful. Forms, which I recommend you check out, and I guess I should show you what this looks like. Okay. All right. Let me show you what this looks like. There we go. So I'm going to show, oh, this is volume 1. Instead, I want to show you volume 2 right here. So just look above here. That's where the table of contents is. We have Appendix A right here, Appendix B. Then we have all the supplementary standards. As part of this course, we'll use some of these supplementary standards. And then the forms, which I recommend you check out because these are the same forms you're going to be using if you continue in this business. Okay, they're pretty much standardized for all of Ontario. All right. The numbering system. This here is fancy talk for saying that page numbers are bad. Once you start flipping through the Ontario Building Code, you're going to find that there's page numbers on it, of course, right? But you do not use page numbers to reference something in the Ontario Building Code. And that goes back to the whole thing about additions and amendments. When a new amendment comes out to an edition of the Ontario Building Code, what can happen sometimes is that one page may be replaced by 2 or more pages. And the problem with that is that suddenly, the only way to do it is that you go from having, for example, page 47, one page. If you replace it with 3 pages, then you replace it with page 47A, 47B, and 47C. Okay? Because that's how it happens. And as more and more amendments come out, your version of the Ontario Building Code might have different pages than my version of the Ontario Building Code, even though the content is the same, even though we've kept things up to date. And the only way to speak the same language and reference the same thing is not to use page numbers to reference an item in the Ontario Building Code, but rather to use the Building Code's numbering system. And it's a numbering system that uses numbers and letters to identify a specific location in the Ontario Building Code. You see, each one of these, this is the so-called decimal system, each one of these represents a level, an increasingly deeper level in the Ontario Building Code. Okay? So each one of these has a name. So what we have here is 3.6.2.13.1 FIA. Each one of those letters and numbers has a name. Left to right, the first number is the part, followed by the section, the subsection, the article, the sentence, the clause, the subclause, and the sub-subclause. Okay? And if you remember, the Ontario Building Code is broken down within its divisions into parts. And then each one of those parts has sections. Each one of those sections may have subsections. Each one of those subsections may have articles. Each one of those articles may have sentences, and so on and so forth. By using this numbering system, you remove the need for having the same page number to speak about the same location in the Ontario Building Code, because this will always be the same regardless of how well we've updated our Ontario Building Code. Okay? According to the convention for this numbering system, you use the lowest level, so the rightmost level, to name the whole thing. The rightmost level here, the last one, is the sub-subclause in this case. So you would read that whole thing as sub-subclause 3.6.2.13.1 FIA. Okay, you use always the last one to give the name to the whole thing. So I figured, how about we practice this and we find a location in the Ontario Building Code together. So here's what we're going to find. We're going to find something in Division B, 3.2.2.9.2. And I also like to write it, instead of writing Division B, I like to put the division letter between square brackets. Okay, so written like this. Now, to be fair, I didn't invent this whole thing of using square brackets to identify what division or what appendix or what supplementary standard this is referencing. but I do want to share it with you because you might see it. By virtue of it being in division B, that tells us that it's in volume 1. Okay, so that's where we're going to go look for this in division B. Also, I'm going to list all the levels here if I could. Remember, there were 8 of them. But you notice that there's only 5 numbers. So we're going to go from top for the first 5 levels and only use those. So that goes up to and including sentence. All the other levels don't apply because they're missing at the end. And if you remember, it's the last level, the rightmost one, that names the whole thing. So this here is sentence 3.2.2.9.2. Let's go find it. How about that? So I'm going to get us to the Ontario Building Code, the digital version, and I think this is volume 2. Yeah, so I want to bring us back to volume 1, if I could. There we go. And volume 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make myself a little smaller because I want to show you some stuff, if I could, like this. Okay. So I want to show you kind of a few different ways of doing this. Okay. And like I'm going to put at the top what we're looking for. We're looking for division B, sentence 3.2.2.9.2. So there's a couple of ways to do it. I can go to the table of contents here, find division B right there, open it up. Then because we know that we're looking at part 3, I open up part 3 and I can look furthermore because I know I'm looking for also section 2. I can go here and open this up. And then because I know that I'm looking for subsection 2, I can go here and then scroll down until I find article 9 right here. Okay, that's one way to do it. And then under article 9, I've been asked to look for sentence 2, which brings us right there. Okay, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is that maybe I can go to part 3, the table of contents, and notice how the pointer for the mouse changes, right? It actually becomes a hyperlink. So I go and find the closest subsection, 3.2.2, click on that, and then scroll until I find the proper article, article 9. And then once I find article 9, I find sentence 2. Okay. Another way to do this, and I'm going to scroll down on the page a bit more right here, is that I can also use a search function. And that's because it's a digital copy, right? So if I press Control F on a Windows computer, or if I press Command F on a Mac computer, I can type in up to the article and it will take you there. Okay, it will show how many matches there are for that article, and you can scroll up or down and find that. Okay, now it will give you all the matches, and it will give you all the matches for where you are in the Ontario Building Code. So make sure that you view all the matches. Okay, because if you're past what you're looking for, you might have to go upwards instead of downwards. Okay, all right. So I hope that helped a little bit with how to find information. The next thing I want to discuss is icons. For this course, in the videos and in the course notes, I'll be using these icons here. There are 2 distinct types of icons. There's first one, the open book icons that look like this or that. That means go find that in the Ontario Building Code. The second one looks like a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil next to it. That means go do that, whether it's homework or an example that you must do by putting pen to paper to do it. Okay? Because that's how you'll be submitting your homework, your tests, and your exams. All right. Let's wrap things up by chatting a little bit about definitions. You see, in the Ontario Building Code, certain words are written different than others. Certain words are written in an italics font, so it's slanted. Okay, it's at an angle. What that means, if you find a word in the Ontario Building Code that's italicized, it means that the Ontario Building Code provides a definition for that word. For real. Now you might go, okay, is that important? Let me show you an example. Well, why not? let's say building height. Building height, if you go find this words together, they're italicized. So that means that the Ontario Building Code specifically define what building height means according to the Ontario Building Code. So let me give you an example. If we're looking at these two landmarks, the Pyramid of Giza and the Tower of Pisa, and I ask you what the building heights for them are, you go, oh, that's easy. On Wikipedia, it says that the Tower of Pisa is 57 meters in height, and the Pyramid of Giza is 139 meters in height. Well, you'd be wrong, because according to the Ontario Building Code, that's not their height. Their height is this. And that's because the definition for building height in the Ontario Building Code is specific to the Ontario Building Code. It is not the vertical distance, the vertical dimension of that building. It is instead the number of stories. Interesting, right? This is where you would find definitions in the Ontario Building Code, and I think it would be very helpful if I were to show you. So let me bring you there, and let me zoom in for you. There. Let me show you where that is. So we find that in Division A, right here. So I get us a Division A, it's in Part 1, and right here, under defined terms. So 1.4.2 defined terms. If we scroll down, there is a list of definitions. See how these words are italicized? That means they're defined. And you'll find that for some of these definitions, so let's say, for example, agricultural occupancy, there are words in that definitions that are themselves italicized, like occupancy, building, okay? So let's find building height. Building height is, where are you? Right here. Look at that. Building height in stories means the number of stories contained between the roof and the floor of the first story. And notice how the word stories or first story is also italicized. That means that you can go and find those words to find the definitions for those words according to the Ontario Building Code. Okay? Okay? Hey, I know what that means. It means we're at the end of this video. Thank you so much for following along for topic 1. Moving on then on to topic 2. In topic 2, you're going to learn a little bit about fake buildings. Interested? I hope to see you there. Bye.